another installment of the South African Rally Raid Championship, the most exciting form of motor racing in the country, and the only place you can see the fearsome Dakar Rally monsters compete on local soil. This is round 2, the Sugarbelt 400, and all the action is brought to you by Toyota, Ford and Pirelli. Welcome back to SARRC Racing and round 2 of the 2023 championship. This time round, the Rally Raid circus moved to the KZN town of Eston, roughly an hour inland from Durban. The Sugarbelt 400, as the race is known, has featured on the calendar in the past, but the 2022 race was cancelled due to the devastating floods that swept through the province of KwaZulu-Natal last year. This year, however, the weather held for the race, and even though the temperatures were mild, the action was certainly hot. The DSP was again sent at the Beaumont Eston Farmers Club, where the race HQ was also situated. The event featured the Pirelli qualifying race, which was scheduled to take place over a distance of 50 kilometers, followed by 2 race loops totaling 160 kilometers each. These loops were split between a southern and northern loop, offering a mix of terrain to the competitors. With that, let's jump straight into the meaty details of the championship to date, as well as the action out on the Sugarbelt, starting with the lads in Class T1. This class has been highly competitive throughout 2022, and the battle seems to be continuing unabated into 2023. Defending champion Eben Besson was edged out in round 1 of the championship, and finds himself in 3rd place in the title standings. Former bike racer Nick Pienaar was in 2nd, but the top spot after round 1 belonged to Johan de Bruin in his red-lined Revo. We caught up with the man himself prior to the start of the Sugarbelt 400.
It's different having the target on your back for a change, and I think we got very, very lucky at Molalon.
While the plan was for the Pirelli qualifying race to take place over 52 kilometers, a fire broke out along the route, and while a large portion of the field managed to complete the full distance, several crews had to be rerouted as a result of the fire. The organizers were forced to truncate the timings at the 20.29 kilometer mark, which favored some crews more than others. But this was the only fair solution to the problem. The dice came up snake eyes for de Bruin and co-driver Gerard Skitter, as the pair posted only the 6th fastest time in qualifying. This left them as the 17th car on the road, and the best part of a minute behind the pole sitters. Ahead of de Bruin, Johan and Sean van Staden went just 2 seconds quicker, clearly showing how timings were in the shortened qualifying race. Nick Pienaar and Carl Swanepoel in a red-lined Motorsport Revo narrowly missed out on a podium finish. But when the dust had settled, the top 3 qualifiers were Daniel Schroeder and Ryan Bland in 3rd place, trailing Eben Besson and Leander Pienaar in the Team Hilux Rally Raid machine. In the end, our ever pole position went to young Jaden Els in the King Price Extreme SVR, with the experienced Alvin Fonk reading the notes. They set a time of 16 minutes and 44 seconds, 8 seconds clear of Besson and Pienaar.
We went quite well up to just before the first split, and then we wrong slotted, so luckily this the split where they cut the qualifying time helped us now.
And here's confirmation of Els and Fonk leading the pack, ahead of Besson and Pienaar in 2nd, and Schroeder and Bland in 3rd. This was race day at the famed Sugarbelt 400, one of the iconic races on the calendar. And although there was some rain predicted for later in the day, the race got underway in dry conditions when the flag was waved shortly after 8 a.m. It didn't take long for the battle to heat up. In fact, it returned into a full-scale war between the main protagonists, while the rest was simply in a fight to survive. Newcomers Gerard and Rudy Heinlein did not survive their Sugarbelt baptism of fire, and neither did Daniel Schroeder and Ryan Bland, who were considered to be contenders for a win here in KZN. It was an eventful race for the father and son pairing of Johan and Sean van Staden, who stopped their Renault Duster to help Jürgen Schroeder and Stuart Gregory back onto their wheels, after the latter rolled their Nissan Navara. But it seemed like no good deed gets left unpunished, as the van Stadens then ran into trouble of their own that prevented them from reaching the finish. Someone who did reach the finish was the red-line pairing of Johan de Bruin and Gerard Skitter. These two came into the Sugarbelt as championship points leaders, but the race gave them an opportunity to do some character building, as they had to deal with a number of difficulties. The pairing persisted and earned some points for finishing in 7th. They were beaten to the finish by the 18-year-old lady driver Aliyah Kolak, with the experienced Rian Kreiling reading the notes in a red-lined VK50. It was the first taste of South African soil for the lady from Dubai, who at just 18 has a great future ahead of her after recording a 6th place finish in Class T1. South Africa is proving to be a popular playground for international crews, with regular visitor Jürgen Schroeder and local navvy Stuart Gregory reaching the finish in 5th place. And that's after surviving a roll and getting some help from the Van Stadens early on. We were now nearing the business end of the Class T1 field, with 4 crews still in the fight for the 3 remaining podium positions. The contenders: 2 Team Hilux Rally Raid Hiluxes piloted by the Blicknow brothers Fushian Battis, and defending class champions Eben Besson and Leander Pinot. The red-lined Revo of Nick Pinot and Carl Swanepoel, and the King Price Extreme SVR of Jaden Els and Alvin Fonk. And this is how it played out. Pole setters Els and Fonk were first out of the blocks, but the pairing started to lose time towards the end of Loop 1. Fonk was feeling ill, and the pair lost the lead to the red-line Revo of Pinot and Swanepoel at the halfway mark. In fact, they had no choice but to replace the experienced navigator with Henry Cohn, who became available after their Class T1 Plus car was forced to retire in Loop 1. Meanwhile, they were also passed on the timesheets by the rapid Hilux of Besson and Pinot, and found themselves in a fight for the final podium position against the second Team Hilux Rally Raid car in the hands of the Blicknow brothers. In the end, the Blicknows, in only their second year in the sport and their first ever Sugarbelt, missed out on a podium finish by just 67 seconds. And that after 400 kilometers of gravel road racing. Youngster Jaden Els, with Cohn in the hot seat, recovered well to claim the 3rd step on the podium after an eventful race. And although second place was probably not quite what the defending champions had in mind before the start of the race, a second place finish would have been a decent way to get their title defense on track for Eben Besson and Leander Papies Pinot, who had an eventful race that included a number of punctures and getting stuck in the ditch. And staying out of trouble is exactly what Nick Pinot and Carl Swanepoel did from behind the wheel of their red-line Revo. It was a great performance from the former motorcycle racer, who claimed his first victory in the hotly contested T1 class. The scoreboard confirms the 8-minute difference between Pinot in first and Besson in second, with youngster Els rounding out the podium positions. The Blicknows finished in a fine 4th ahead of Schroeder and Dubai driver Aliyah Kolak, with the Brain claiming the final Class T1 points. And finally, the well-deserved taste of victory after a tough battle against the competition, as well as the tough terrain the Sugarbelt had to offer. Needless to say, Pinot was satisfied with his maiden victory.
Long day in the seats, but it seemed to pay off, so we're very grateful for the result.
Next up, let's take a look at Class T, which remains one of the most cost-effective entry points to the sport of rally raid racing. With that said, the entry list for round 1 was limited, with a similar situation at round 2. Even so, it was Hendrik Du Plessis who drew first blood ahead of Nico Nienober, as the championship standing showed. Du Plessis, who pilots a blue and orange Ford Ranger, made his Sugarbelt debut this year, and the Class T driver had a very clear plan for the weekend.
It's our first time here. My dad warned me because they raced here a long time ago.
In the end, only 2 Class T cars took the starters' orders for the Sugarbelt 400, with Du Plessis and son Heinrich trading blows with Skalkberg and Henk Janssen van Vieren in their King Price Extreme VW Amarok. Once the dust had settled after the shortened Pirelli qualifying race, it was Berger who took pole position, but only by a single second. Clearly a tight race was on the cards for these 2 crews. And this makes it official. Berger and Janssen van Vieren took the win, with the Du Plessis pairing just a second back. Berger and Du Plessis were both in the mood for a fight, but unfortunately for both races, this fight never materialized. The father and son pairing of Hendrik and Heinrich Du Plessis are fairly new to the sport of rally raid racing, and on this occasion they saw the ugly side of Lady Luck, who forced them to throw in the towel midway through the day. This left Skalkberger Jr. and his navigator Henk Janssen van Vieren as the only competitors left in Class T. But Berger's fight was with the route and the challenges that the sugarcane presented. On this occasion, the big man emerged victorious as the King Price Extreme Volkswagen Amarok returned to Aston. 6 hours and 16 minutes behind the wheel gave the pairing a decent overall result, as well as claiming victory in Class T. All in all, a good day behind the wheel for the King Price Extreme team principal.
First time out, win in the class, yeah, that's impressive.
Onto the cruise in Class G, also known as the side-by-sides or sideys. These open-wheeled machines are deceptively quick in the right hands, and when it comes to crews that can extract the best from their Can-Am Mavericks, there's no shortage in the SARRC. The Senna Mostert has become synonymous with this class, first with Vanna Mostert and brother Leon chalking up some victories, and more recently with Vanna's son Ian reading the notes. For 2023, the father and son have swapped seats, and it seems the plan is paying off, as they nailed the first win in this year's championship. After the opening round, it was Mostert who led ahead of Glenn Theron and Ewald van Rensburg. We had a chat with young Ian prior to the start of the Sugarbelt 400.
We had an amazing start with a first place early in the year, so hopefully we can keep it up.
As it panned out, the Mosterts were sidelined by mechanical problems and would face an uphill battle during the main race. A similar fate befell Jeff Minnaert and Gerard Snyman in the hydro power equipment Can-Am Maverick. In the end, 4 of the 6 Class G crews completed the Pirelli qualifying race, with Francois Neil de Wit going 4th fastest. They had lost more than 25 minutes due to some technical difficulties, none of which plagued the top 3 crews in the class. Glenn Theron and Craig Galvin in the Moto Netix machine posted a time of 19 minutes and 34 seconds, good enough for 3rd. They were bested by Theo Erasmus and Edward Oudendal, who went 5 seconds quicker, but were in turn outdone by Ewald van Rensburg and Johan Skeepers, who took pole position with a margin of 2 seconds.
From the flames and from the smoke, it was a no-go definitely, so I think we'd rather play it safe. We're here for tomorrow and we'll give it our best.
And there you have it, Van Rensburg on top, followed by Erasmus and Theron. The route on the race day of the 2023 Sugarbelt 400 was always going to present a tough challenge for the smallest cars, with the least amount of power in the field. But don't be fooled, the little sideys are light, which means they're quick to reach their top speeds. They also handle well and can brake on a dime, and when you add all of those things together, they make for rather quick little race cars. Climbs between the Class G warriors are usually close, and the Sugarbelt was no exception. And after a tumultuous 350 kilometers, new winners emerged in the form of Ewald van Rensburg and Johan Skeepers after 6 hours and 33 minutes of racing, converting their pole position into a race victory. But it was rather close, as a mere 80 seconds was all that separated them from a charging Jeff Minnaert and Gerard Snyman in their hydro power equipment Can-Am Maverick. Youngster Ian Mostert and father Van in their Moto Netix Racing Can-Am battled traffic and motion sickness to earn the points that came with their 3rd place in Class G. That will see them keeping their lead on the points table. Their teammates, Glenn Theron and Craig Galvin in a similar Can-Am, finished 4th in the class and were 8th overall, with Francois Neil de Wit the very last finishers. They were 5th in Class G. The team broke down and took a 10-hour penalty to be able to continue, and they made it to the finish. Unfortunately for Theo Erasmus and partner Edward Oudendal, they didn't reach the end. There were happy moments on the winners' podium for Class G victors Ewald van Rensburg and Johan Skeepers, who got to spray the bubbly from the top step.
Tough event, we really battled today. It was tough, we pushed through.
The scoreboard revealed that it got mighty close in the end, with Minnaert and Snyman getting to within 2 minutes at the end, with the Mosterts climbing all the way up into the final podium spot. Class A features a host of powerful open-wheeled monsters purpose-built for cross-country racing. Tim Howes has been a stalwart of the class and is also the defending champion. As befits a champion, he took victory at the opening round of the season and now heads up the title chase. Noort de Pre was in 2nd after round 1, with Eugene Beerman in 3rd. We had a quick chat with Haas before he set off for his qualifying race in Aston.
We race our own race and we do what we can, and if that's good enough to win, fantastic.
This time round, 6 Class A cars took the starters' orders at the Sugarbelt 400, with Trace Price-Moore and co-driver Gareth Aston, as well as Keith and Andrew Makanete, adding their names to the list. But it was a tough qualifier for the Makanetes. who failed to complete the shortened route. In the end, Bierman and co-driver Peter Visser went 5th fastest, 1 minute and 20 seconds behind John Thompson and co-driver Maurice Matten in their SARRC Challenger. They were beaten for the first of the podium spots by Trace Pricemore and Gareth Aston in their stunning Bat Venom, while Loet de Pre and Nick van Zyl took 2nd place in their Farmers Meet Striker. But the man on pole position was none other than defending champ Tim Haas, with Gary Campbell reading his notes.
I lost the clutch, so every time we had to stop, we stalled, but got it going and managed to get to the end and had great fun.
And here are the numbers. The qualifying race saw Haas take pole yet again, followed by Dupree and Pricemore. Next up, the main event. The Sugarbelt saw a few stalwarts of the sport return to action, but unfortunately for the likes of Keith and Andrew Makanete, it wasn't a fairy tale return as they were forced to the sidelines, as was the Farmers Meet striker of Loet de Pre and Nick van Zyl, who also failed to reach the finish. Someone who did reach the finish in spite of picking up a 40-minute penalty along the way is another veteran combination of the sport, John Thompson and Maurice Matten, who returned after taking some time off. The crew were rewarded with a fine 4th place because the final podium spot in class belonged to Eugene Bierman and Peter Visser, who raced hard to complete their first Sugarbelt as a pairing. Their time was 6 hours and 20 minutes. That also included a fair share of drama along the way. But not as much drama that characterized the fight for overall Class A and Special Vehicle honours. This fight was between fellow Italians Tim Haas and Gary Campbell and Trace Pricemore and new navvy Gareth Aston. The latter started the main race on Saturday in 2nd place behind the pace setters and Special Vehicle Championship leaders Haas and Campbell. The tight corners, challenging navigation and testing routes typical of the event, as well as a 40-minute penalty, did not stand in the way of the team taking their first category and Class A victory, with a total time of 6 hours and 9 minutes. The defending champions Haas and Campbell suffered various mechanical issues, including racing without a clutch and with a broken rear shock absorber, but still finished in style as the category and Class A runners-up, 2 minutes and 11 seconds behind the winners. There it is, the scoreboard confirming the 2 minutes and 11 seconds between 1st and 2nd after a drama-filled race in the top class of the Special Vehicle category, with Bierman rounding out the top 3. And it must have been bittersweet to celebrate victory from the top step of the podium for Pricemore.
No, fantastic. A great race, quite tough. Tight corners and all that, but what Sugarbelt gives to us, it was awesome.
And a quick congratulations is also in order to Grant Watkins and navigator Mark Irvine, who were behind the wheel of the only Class P special vehicle in the race. But to finish first, you must first finish. And they did. And with that, we move on to the big boys at the head of the field. This is Class T1 Plus, where Dakar-capable race cars, including the fearsome GR DKR Hilux T1 Plus, that won the Dakar Rally in 2022 and 2023, do battle. The field has grown significantly in recent times, but looking at the championship standings, it is clear that the fight between Toyota and Ford is alive and well. Henk Laatgan topped the charts, followed by Gareth Woolridge and defending champion Janelle de Villiers, which meant that Laatgan, winner in round 1, was the man with a target on his back.
And now we're in Essen. I really enjoy these roads. I like the tight and twisty things, even though I think these cars aren't exactly designed for that. They like the open deserts a bit more.
But KZN is the domain of Neil Woolridge Motorsport, who runs the NWM Ford Castrol team. Their HQ is situated in Pietermaritzburg, just 30 minutes from the race location. And if anyone was going to give the boys in red a bloody nose in Aston, it was likely to be the lads from just down the road. We visited Neil and his sons Lance and Gareth at their HQ before the race.
Our domestic championship in South Africa, as I mentioned, is probably one of the best in the world. It's a very, very good training and learning ground, not only from a driving perspective, but from a development of the car perspective.
As for Lance and Gareth, they both knew what to do in Aston, and they both reckon that racing in their backyard didn't offer them any significant advantages.
But yeah, it's going to be a very exciting race. It's a very technical race.
Hopefully all things go well and we can bring back the top step.
Down in Eston, it was time for the men to be separated from the boys. 10 Class T1 Plus machines rolled up for the start of the Pirelli qualifier. And at 12:30 on Friday, the 12th of May, it was go time in Eston. With the Class T1 Plus cars leading the field, most of them completed the full qualifying distance, only to have their times truncated at the 21.2 kilometer mark due to the fire that blocked the route for some of the competitors. But when the smoke had cleared, the dust had settled, and the times calculated, it was Brian Baragwanath and Leonard Kramer who went 5th fastest. The Century Racing pairing finished just 18 seconds behind the pole sitters. 4th fastest, Henk Lazagan and Brett Cummings, who had to open the road for the qualifier. The TGRSA crew struggled to find their way in places, but lost only 12 seconds despite their challenges. This brings us to the sharp end of the field, where Lance Woolridge and Kenny Gilbert clocked the 3rd fastest time in qualifying. Just a single second faster than their TGRSA rivals. But the NWM Ford Castrol team had to be content with the wily old fox Janelle de Villiers and co-driver Dennis Murphy, recording a time 7 seconds quicker to take 2nd place. Pole position? That went to none other than NWM Ford Castrol's Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer. The local lads flexing their muscles and clearly throwing down the gauntlet to their Toyota counterparts. Their winning margin was 4 seconds, with a tough main event clearly on the cards.
I said to Boyd before the race, I felt super relaxed and I felt really confident. Him and I are feeling good together. The car is feeling the best it's ever felt, and I think it all showed today. So yeah, very chuffed.
Here are the details again. It was Woolridge and Dreyer who took pole position ahead of de Villiers and Murphy, and Woolridge and Gilbert. This made for an interesting starting grid with a main race that certainly didn't disappoint. In the end, the main race can be summed up by just one word, but one has to say it repeatedly to do it justice. The word? Drama. Drama and more drama. The route was tough, tricky and challenging with no room for error, while dust was also a huge factor. The names of Gary Bertholt and Ernest Roberts did not appear on the results boards, as both these drivers failed to reach the finish. Century Racing's Brian Baragwanath and Leonard Kramer very nearly also joined that list of non-finishers when they were stuck in the ditch. But they eventually got out to cross the finish line, and so did Simon Murray and Achim Bergman in their WCT HT2 Toyota, who recorded a 9th place finish in the Premier class after rolling their car the day before. Unfortunately for local hero Lance Woolridge and navigator Kenny Gilbert, the fight for overall victory never materialized. The pre-event favourites suffered a few setbacks and then sportingly also stopped to help recover the Class T1 crew of Evan Besson and Leander Pienaar out of a ditch, dropping them down to 8th in class. 7th was another Lance, but this one was behind the wheel of the 2-wheel drive King Price Extreme Century Racing CR6. The big dog and partner Adrian Ritz also overcame their fair share of technical issues, so the crew was happy to see the end. Chris Fiss is a former champion, and together with Albertus Venter, the Redline Revo crew would not have been so happy with their eventual 6th place finish in the Premier Class T1 Plus. Fisser had his work cut out after starting in the middle of the field, but they overcame some mechanical issues only to lose more time with the puncher. And what a welcome return to top-level racing for the Horn brothers, Johan and Vanna, who missed their home race in Malalaan earlier due to the tragic passing of their father. The Horns were back with a vengeance in their Team Hilux Rally Raid Hilux and chased hard to fight for a podium position. But these are hard to come by, and in the end, they had to settle for 5th overall, just 44 seconds behind the 4th place finishers. It was an eventful run for Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle, to say the least. Although hailing from KZN, it was the pairing's first ever outing at the Sugarbelt. Add to that the fact they had to open the road for the first part of the Saturday, and it was clear that the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA squad did a good job to bring the Hilux home in one piece, albeit just one position shy from the podium. And then there were 3. The 2 Toyota Gazoo Racing SA crews of Henk Lazagan and Brett Cummings, and Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy, and the NWM Ford Castrol team of local lads Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer. Quite literally, the Ford in the Toyota sandwich. Although on this occasion the Ford started on top after winning the qualifying race the day before. But what a crazy race it would turn into for all 3 of these crews, who each experienced a fair share of drama. Woolridge initially managed to maintain a slight advantage at the top of the field, but then suffered a puncture just 40 kilometers from the end. This led to issues with their brakes and robbed them of more valuable seconds. And that's all that Janelle de Villiers needed. Having said that, the former multiple champion and past winner of this race made it difficult for himself by also picking up a flat tire or two, and wrong slotting on a number of occasions. But in the end, the veteran snuck into second place by a margin of just 19 seconds over the Ford of Woolridge. After that was settled, it didn't take much to figure out that Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Henk Larsgan and Brett Cummings were on their way to claim their second victory of the season in as many events. And it was everything but easy. The timesheet will show a winning margin of more than 3 minutes, but their run included a few punches of their own, as well as time lost when they landed up in a ditch. So this is what the record books will say after the completion of the 2023 Sugarbelt 400. The times do not tell the full story, but the names of Larsgan and Cummings topped the sheets with a 3-minute and 16-second victory over teammates de Villiers and Murphy, with Woolridge and Dreyer just a further 19 seconds back.
I was actually surprised at the end that we managed to pull a gap again, so really happy with the result.
Time for the podium finishers to enjoy the winner's bubbly from the Sugarbelt podium, and the second win in a row for Larsgan, who now also leads the 2023 title fight. Next up, the big one. The flagship marathon event is returning to our neighboring country, Botswana, for the first time since the start of COVID, for the legendary Toyota Gazoo Racing Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race. See you in the Kalahari from the 23rd to the 25th of June. All the action from the Sugarbelt 400 was brought to you by Toyota, Ford and Pirelli in association with the SARRC.